Welcome to the November CEC Monthly Exchange. It feels like it's been a while since I did one of these. And of course, the conference was way back in September now, which seems a lifetime ago as well. But we have here Jackie Spainhauer is also here, who co-hosts with me and sometimes, quite regularly hosts these exchanges. And just as a reminder, this is the Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities Monthly Exchange, which is designed to bring you people who are working in the space of supporting or facilitating economic development through entrepreneurship in rural regions throughout Missouri. And today I'm very excited to bring you Caitlyn Yager from Missouri Humanities. And I have been listening to Missouri Small Town Showcase, I think it is, which is where I first came across Caitlyn and reached out to her and said, "Oh my gosh, would you be a guest on our webinar?" And really, I love doing these webinars because, you know what, selfishly, it's just an excuse for me to talk to cool people and share it with you all. But I just like learning about people and what they do. And so, Caitlyn, thank you for giving us some of your time today to come and talk about Missouri Humanities.
My pleasure.
So, first of all, let's have a little bit of your background. Have you always lived in Missouri? How long have you been with Missouri Humanities? How did you come to be there? That kind of thing.
Yeah. I am technically, I like to say, a lifelong Missourian. I did spend a very brief parts of my life right after I was born. I was born in Texas and spent a little bit of time there, but quickly came to St. Louis, and that's where me and my family have been ever since. So I grew up and spent my time in St. Louis. I went to Truman State University and got a degree in history. And after that, for somebody who got a degree in history and said they didn't want to be a teacher, it took me a minute to find a job. So I went down the retail rabbit hole for a little while, spent a few years in retail management, and then realized I can either spend my life in retail, which there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what my intent in life was, or I can really start to buckle down and try and find a job in my field. I had spent a little bit of time during my retail stint working with a small nonprofit in Missouri in St. Louis called the Missouri Civil War Heritage Foundation. A very small, like literally 1 to 2 person staff, doing educational programming for Civil War history. And through that met the then executive director of Missouri Humanities. At that point, it was Steve Belko. And when I got to the point of, I was finished with the Civil War organization, I was in retail, and I was like, gosh, I need to do something. I reached out to him because I knew he was well connected. And I said, hey, do you have any leads for me? And he said, oh, here's some info. Like, I don't have anything for you right now, but if I come up with anything, I'll let you know. And no joke, like 2 weeks later, he had a staff member, turn in their notice that they were moving out of state. And he said, oh my gosh. And he contacted me and he said, are you interested in applying for the position? Because he was actually hoping to transform what was once a communications coordinator position into more of like a program coordinator position. I said, sure. And the rest is history. I started off as a program coordinator in 2016. And a couple years later, we created our heritage programs, which was one of the major kind of subsets of our programming that we did. And so I served as director of heritage programs for several years. Our programming shifted a bit during COVID, like most people's. And now we've simplified it a bit to me and a fellow coworker. We're both simply program directors. So my job is overseeing mostly our digital programs. So Annette mentioned Small Town Showcase. That is a program that I manage. I manage our podcasts that Missouri Humanities does under our signature series header. And I also lead the charge for our streaming service, which is called Humanities TV. So there's, amongst a lot of other things, we're a staff of about 11 people, split between an office in Kansas City and St. Louis. And we do a lot of things. And so it feels like, if anybody needs help, we're there. And, we have our staff hats and what we do, but we're always helping one another out. So I feel like, yes, I do digital programs, but, everybody does a little bit of everything. So yeah, it's been great. I love the work I do. I love being able to engage with Missouri communities, and excited to sit and chat with you guys.
Wow, that's cool. And it is very apparent how much you love what you do. Um, so it seems as though Missouri Humanities is focused on telling the story of Missouri. Is that your main objective or your main focus?
I think you could easily argue that in some way, every bit of what we do is about telling a story. Our mission officially is to enrich lives and strengthen communities by connecting Missourians to the people, places, and ideas that shape our society, which works towards our vision of a more thoughtful, informed, and civil society. So that's kind of our, we're a nonprofit. We have our mission statement, our vision statement, but something that we really do lean into. And like I said, I think you could really connect any of our programming to is some sort of storytelling. A lot of people think of the humanities. Actually, I won't say that. I don't think a lot of people think about the humanities, but I don't think a lot of people know what the humanities are. But I think if you were to ask, a lot of people would probably say things like history, like literature, like philosophy, and those things are all true. But at Missouri Humanities, we like to talk about how it's so much more than that. It's about that human connection. It's what makes us human. And a lot of times that's storytelling, that's connection, that's engagement. It's learning, it's education. So, I think that that's really what we try and explain that the humanities are, because I think they mean different things to different people. And we're, one of our main objectives as a humanities organization, and as one of 53 territorial, state and territorial humanities councils, is to make the humanities a more obvious part of our everyday life, because they're everywhere. They're all around you. You interact with the humanities every single day. You're living your own story. You're connecting with other people who are living their story. You're reading, you're watching, you're listening. So I think that's our big goal, I think, is just to encourage everybody to understand how much of our daily life the humanities are. And yes, you're completely right that storytelling is a big piece of that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. We hear so much of an emphasis on data, data driven decisions, data, driven strategies, etc. And I'm in that space and as an economist. But really the stories and the work that you do and within the humanities and is that data, right? The data is kind of very surface level or not really that informative if we're not providing the qualitative piece beside it, right? But having said that, is there space for data in the humanities, and how do you use it?
For us, I think, a really good example is over the last, I guess from about 2023 to early 2024, we conducted a survey where we really wanted to know, we wanted to take the temperature of the humanities in Missouri. We wanted to know what the impression was. We wanted to know, and it wasn't so self-serving that we just wanted to know people knew who we were. We wanted to know if people knew what the humanities were. And what we found out was that they don't. The large majority of Missourians were not could not really comfortably or confidently define what the humanities were. And so we use that kind of data, that kind of taking the temperature, taking the statistics of community engagement and community connectedness to the humanities, and having that inform our work. Obviously, like so many others, we have programs where we're sending out surveys and we want to know who learned something new, where people are from. But for us, it's just informing us as to where we're connecting the most, where we're missing, and how much more work we need to do as an organization to better inform and better engage the humanities in daily life. I think the biggest piece of data for us is our reach. There's 114 counties in Missouri. We're a large state, but we're a largely rural state. We have a lot of activity in Kansas City, a lot of activity in St. Louis, Columbia, Springfield. Those are kind of our four major areas. And then you can get into the, like Cape Girardeau, Kirksville, these other kind of major college areas, university areas, but the majority you get in those kind of four more metropolitan areas of Missouri. And we want to make sure that we represent the whole of the state. So we are very, very focused on when we're having a program, when we are hosting an event, that we are taking into consideration the audience. When we're doing our year-end reporting, we want to know what counties we've reached, what counties we've missed. We want to know how many people from those counties, appreciate the work we do, if we need to do better. So I think that's as far as data goes, I think that's the biggest way we use it. We need to know who we're reaching and who we're not reaching, I think more importantly.
Yeah, who is not represented in the data, right? And I like the piece about, the human connection, what makes us human. From a rural perspective, I feel like, I live in Colombia now, but I'm from a rural town in New Zealand. And I feel like in our rural communities, we are very much like when we meet you, we're trying to find a connection to who do you know that I might know, right? And which seems almost more important than what do you know? So, if we can find that, oh, yes, you went to school with this person, or yes, I know that person and you know that person, then the connection is there. Which I really enjoy that piece of rural communities, although it doesn't work out for me so much when I visit rural communities in Missouri because I've only been here 10 years. So not much. So in terms of that, you've named a lot of your programs, or the different types of programs and things that you're directly involved in. What are the ways that, let's go into more specifics on some of those programs and the things that you deliver that can help. And on this webinar, we do really lean into the rural communities piece. So are there some that are more relevant for rural communities, or that you've seen a demand for from different rural communities that maybe some of our listeners don't know about? Or
there are several. The first one that I think is the obvious that everyone really likes to hear about is that we are a granting agency. That means a large percentage of our budget each year has to by mandate be returned to communities. So we do that in the form of grants. We have every year 4 different grant deadlines: February 1st, May 1st, August 1st, November 1st. And they're not different grants. It's just a way for us to break up the work and break up the funding. And we award grants up to $15,000 to support humanities-based programming in Missouri communities. So that is the number one. I'm about to I'll drop in the chat a link to our grants page on our website. So you might notice the calendar is November 1st. That means our grant staff is very, very busy today. But it's a very easy online grant application. We go through the portal called Foundant, which a lot of organizations use for grant writing and grant management. So there is the link to our grants. There's a lot of great examples on our website about successful grants in the past. We have a great grants team that you are welcome to give them a call and talk through a project and make sure that you're understanding the guidelines correctly. that your project it falls within the guidelines. So that's definitely something to consider. We also have, you'll find on that website, a special grant coming up. That grant period opens December 1st and closes January 1st, and that is our semi-quincentennial grants. So as we all, I assume, know, we are approaching the 250th birthday of the Declaration of Independence / the United States of America. And that's significant. So we are hoping to help support educational programming, humanities programming in the state of Missouri, with a special grant cycle for awards up to $25,000. And our goal with this specific grant project is to help Missouri organizations, Missouri communities tell the story of America through the lens of Missouri. So definitely something to keep in mind if you're thinking of a really big community project, or oral histories, or museum work, community festivals. It's a lot harder. It's a lot easier to say what we can't fund than what we can fund. There's anything, any questions you might have, I would definitely contact our grants team, but any sort of connection to that story of America with a Missouri lens is something that I think you should consider for the semi-quincentennial grant. And that's just one time. It's due on January 1st. You can start logging into the grant portal on December 1st to start your application. And any questions, I'm about to put in the chat, I think it's on the website, but Clarice Britton is our grants manager. She's wonderful. She's been with the organization for almost 30 years. So there is nobody out there that knows more about Missouri Humanities and its grants than Clarice. So she's wonderful to work with, and she'd be happy to help you through deciding whether or not you should apply for a grant. Sorry, did you have something?
I was just going to say that this seems like a fantastic opportunity for those history buffs.
Yes.
Like every small town that I go to, there is somebody in that town that everyone says, oh, you have to meet such and such, because they know all about the history and how the town was settled and things like that. So
yeah, I could really see the semi-quincentennial grant supporting a lot of activities like archival work, telling the story of your community's connection to the broader context of our nation, your community's significance to the state of Missouri, and therefore the significance of it to America. I could see a lot of that kind of archival work building out the story of your community as something really interesting for a grant application. Exhibits, community celebrations, that have kind of that cultural or historical lean. There's so many different cool things that you could do with it. And we've seen there's some grant examples on the website that will show you just the difference in all the different things that we support.
Hi, we have a special guest there.
Yes, that would be my son, the baby, who is no longer a baby.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, how exciting to look forward to the outcomes of those grants.
We're really excited to see what comes of it.
Yeah. Gosh, what a great job you have.
Yeah.
And you were going to talk about another opportunity.
Yes. So we've got Jackie brought it up a little bit earlier, but we are currently in the middle of a webinar series called that are capacity building workshops. These are really great monthly workshops. It's the first Tuesday of the month. Currently we have them scheduled out through March, and it's just a really great, 1 hour webinar. And every month is a different topic. So we've done fundraising, we've done community engagement. We're this month, next week actually, is going to be corporate relationships. December is exhibit building. Jackie, who is on the call right now, is doing one on grant writing. And then we'll do one on event planning. So it's just all these various facets of community work, organizational work, all these different pieces that we're trying to bring to communities so that they have just a little bit more knowledge of something that they might need a little bit of a boost with. So they're free webinars. They're done via Zoom. As soon as I can tell my mouse to copy paste, I will send it in the chat. Here we go. So here's the link to those capacity building workshops, and you register once and you'll have the link for all of the webinars. So it's not like each one has a separate registration. You can just sign up and you'll be good to go for all the webinars.
Excellent. And when is the next one? November 5th.
November 5th. So this upcoming Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah. So
what time is it?
First Tuesday. And the other thing that I'll probably mention that's probably significant to this group is you mentioned our small town showcase program. So we're in our 3rd season. We just announced the communities for our 4th season. But Small Town Showcase is one of our digital initiatives. So a digital initiative meaning that it's not like an in-person program. It's not a webinar. The outputs are an asynchronous, streamable, on-demand content. So every community that works with us through Small Town Showcase, we produce a podcast episode and a short film about that community. Every year, communities nominate themselves to be considered, and then those nominees are put out to the public, and the public votes, and the top 5 communities are who we work for that year. So we're in season 3, so we've worked with 15 communities so far. We've just announced the next 5 who we'll be working with for 2025. And it's just a really great opportunity to tell your story. And what I think is really cool is that there's so much assumption made about small town America, that they're all the same, that it's flyover country. What's special about them? And I'm here to tell you, like, watch, listen, and find out, because with 15 towns under our belt, when many more to go, there's no shortage of unique stories, unique places, and people. And it's one of the best parts of my job, that I get to work with these communities and help tell their stories. And what's also great is, we get to create these wonderful films. The cinematographer that we have on staff has such an amazing eye for film and for telling that story through film, that I think every time we finish a video, we're very close to finishing a video on Aurora, Missouri right now. And it's like every time we create a new one, I'm like, oh, that one's my favorite. Like each one is the new favorite. It's just the very best way we could think of to give people a real look at the humanity of small towns, to humanize small town America, especially in a place like Missouri that gets so much attention for Kansas City and St. Louis, and Mizzou is basically Missouri, and to show the really cool stories and histories and people of all those little towns in between. So if anybody on the call is interested in learning more about that, I'm going to drop another link in the chat, and you can see some examples of small town showcase communities. Like I said, we just announced the winners for 2025, but we will put out a call for nominees probably in early 2025. So for the next, it's crazy how far ahead we have to work. But so if you're at all interested in having, us help you tell your community story, consider nominating your community for Small Town Showcase. I will say that the one stipulation is we feature communities with populations of 10,000 or fewer, because we want it to be a small community. And I think a lot of the communities that we highlight are under 5,000 people. So it really does tell some great stories. We've had communities as small as 700 people get featured. And we're truly excited to kind of wrap up 2024 and dig into the next round of communities. Gosh, I feel like I could keep going on and on. I feel like there's so much more we could offer. We have an AmeriCorps program that we're starting up. We're in the middle of starting. People soon, very soon, I think towards the end of this year and into early next year, we'll start putting out calls for sites for our AmeriCorps program. And what that AmeriCorps program will do is you'll partner with Missouri Humanities and our AmeriCorps members. And our goal is to put AmeriCorps members into rural cultural institutions to help with manpower. Something that we've learned from years of things like cultural heritage workshops, from things like Small Town Showcase, is that oftentimes the biggest hindrance to getting things done and to having successful museums, historical societies, and cultural institutions in smaller towns is manpower, is not having either the expertise or the actual physical support of staff members. So this AmeriCorps program is meant to match communities with an AmeriCorps member who's trained in what they need. So it could be someone trained in archival work or digitization or volunteer management, exhibit building, anything that has to do with cultural institutions. And they work 40 hours a week to help you build your capacity for that cultural institution. So we're in the kind of the planning phase right now. That program director is currently submitting the application to get our funding for the implementation, which would mean the time where we'll get our members assigned to us and then we'll put them out into the community. So that's a really exciting new program for us that I think will really be a great asset to rural Missouri. So keep an eye out for that. It's so new and so not ready yet that it's not even on our website. But I've been teasing it out over the year every time I'm talking to people because I'm so excited that I'm like, just keep an eye out. AmeriCorps is coming. So I would definitely keep that in mind.
That sounds super, super cool. And again, another great opportunity. So you just mentioned on it briefly about writing, getting the funding yourself. So how is Missouri Humanities funded?
Great question. Three main ways. We are one of the 53 or 56, I always forget which number, state and territorial humanities councils that gets funding from the National Endowment for the Humanities. So the National Endowment for the Humanities is a federal agency, and their mission is to support, obviously, the humanities in American life, but also we're all under the umbrella of the NEH. So every state and U.S. territory has the Humanities Council and pulls funding from those federal dollars from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Missouri in particular, this is not true for every state, but in Missouri, we do get some funding from the state. We get funded through what's called the non-resident athletes and entertainers tax. So typically you think of state funding as taxpayer dollars, and it is taxpayer dollars, but it's, we like to say that it's not everyday Missourians taxpayer money. Those non-resident athletes and entertainers. So think when the Chiefs play a really big game and their out-of-state team is coming into play. Taylor Swift comes and plays in Kansas City. These kind of big concerts, big sporting events. The paychecks that get paid to those entertainers, to those athletes, gets a tax put on it, and that tax goes into this bucket, the A&E tax we call it, and that tax helps to fund the cultural partners in Missouri. So that's people like Missouri Humanities, the Missouri Arts Council, the Missouri Preservation, and like Missouri, so the cultural partners of Missouri is what it is. And then, so we draw down from that budget too. And then the other one is, of course, our donors and members. So, any individual donors, we have a membership program. And so any dollars raised from a membership program all goes into that. And then, of course, there's also, the opportunity where we might have a program that gets funded through a grant, a specific program. So, but yeah, individual donors and members, the state of Missouri's athlete entertainers tax and the NEH are our three main funders.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Taylor Swift. So
for real, thank you, Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eras Tour.
Yeah. So let's talk about the membership thing then. So what has been a member involved?
So there's a few different levels. So memberships, it's really just a way to be more engaged with us. You get earlier access to events. Oftentimes if Missouri Humanities has an event that's ticketed, you'll either get a discounted or free ticket to those events, and more than likely VIP seating, or like a reception before, or meet and greet with the presenter. For just joining, you get to pick a free book. We have a stock of books that we keep from either Missouri authors or past presenters, keynote speakers. And so you get to pick a book that you get for free with your membership. And really it's kind of that just better access, more communication. So if you're really intrigued by our podcasts and videos and want to learn about them first, if you're really interested in attending events, that happen in St. Louis, Kansas City, anywhere else throughout the state, members get email communication that gets them early access to those. So really it's about access. It's about, I really enjoy the work of Missouri Humanities and I want to support them. Our membership start at $50 a month and, or no, $50 a year. Sorry, $50 a year, not $50 a month. And go up, go up from there. So, and we constantly offer special incentives for memberships, especially for things like our annual gala, for think and drink programs, for receiving our magazine. So yeah, it's a nice little way to be more engaged with us than just, maybe like a one-off program that you might attend. You attend programs, you hear podcasts, you think you really enjoy us, you might consider it. I'll throw that in the chat too.
Yeah. And, plus there's the feel good factor of knowing that you're supporting the humanities. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, how great. That's cool. I did not realize that you could be a member.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah, totally interested in that.
Great.
All right. So, we can open it up for specific questions that you all might have. And, maybe it's about one of their grant programs or something that you're thinking about. So please feel free to, put them in the chat, or if you want to come off mute and ask the question yourself. We would be delighted because we want to make this more participatory. So please go ahead and do that. So while I'm just waiting for people to maybe put in their questions, or maybe you're all happy with listening and happy with my line of questioning. But what are your main challenges, Caitlyn? What are the hard things about getting the work that you do done?
Oh goodness. I can think of a couple right off the bat. One I think is, especially for things like podcasts and films, is adding our content to an already massive pool of content. So it makes me more appreciative to see numbers of people that are listening to the podcast or watching a film, because we know the options that are out there, almost to like a debilitating point. It's decision fatigue. I think that's a really big challenge for us, is people being hammered with different things to do, different things to stream. How do we make it so that they want to engage with our content, with our programs? One way that we've done that is just getting to know our audiences better. We started our own streaming service. It's called Humanities TV. It's a free streaming service. You do have to sign up with an email address, but all the content is free. And we started to house our content there instead of YouTube. And that's been really helpful for us. One thing that we found is that we might get 2,000 views on something on YouTube, but only 300 on Humanities TV. But on YouTube, they watch it for 5 to 30 seconds. And on Humanities TV, they're watching the full 10-minute film. So for us, it's kind of, people ask about numbers. It's like, well, I'd rather have the 300 people watching the full 10-minute film than the 2,000 people where maybe 15 to 20 of them are watching the full film. It's more meaningful engagement. So we're just trying to think of ways that are honing in on the audience that is interested in what we're doing. Humanities TV is the way that we've done that, because we know that people who are signing up for Humanities TV and watching that content are there because they want to be there, and that's the kind of content they want. Because it's not just our content. We actually invite other partners to put their films on there. We have other series from places like Ozark Vitality, from other humanities councils, from like the St. Louis Art Museum even. A lot of really great content on there that's not just the stuff that we produce, but what other partners produce too, other like-minded organizations. So we know that if someone's going on there because they really wanted to watch Small Town Showcase, we're pretty confident that if they browse, they're going to find a lot of other things that they like too. It just makes it a little bit easier to find something that, you really want to watch, and that, you mentioned earlier, Annette, that you kind of just feel good watching. So yeah, that decision fatigue, that putting things out into the ether with everything else is really difficult. And then I think kind of in a related way, with things like our in-person programs, like keynote speakers, like galas, it's, we're living in a a post-pandemic world where I don't think people have really figured out what they like to do anymore. I think we were forced to be online for so long and forced to stay out of public spaces for so long that when it was time to start that transition back, it was a really difficult transition. We found it really difficult to, get people to come to an event at a certain time at a certain place. But at the same time, people were also tired of Zoom webinars. So we were kind of like, well, nobody wants to come to an event right now, but nobody wants to be on Zoom. What do we do? And that's kind of where this kind of on demand, like, fine, we'll create the content. You can just watch it whenever you want. Like, so that's kind of where the podcasts and the films really came into play. This interesting transition from a Zoom webinar that was at, 7 p.m. on a Wednesday night versus, I know that this film is out there and I can watch it at my leisure. That's been really helpful for us. And I think with the in-person events, what's been helpful to start getting people back into a public space and engaging with people over the last couple of years is really strong partners. Our gala this past year in September was our best yet, our biggest fundraiser and our best audience. And we did it at the planetarium in St. Louis, which people would never think that the Humanities Council is going to host an event at the planetarium, but it was an amazing partnership. And they were able to, take advantage of the audience and show them their star show that they do at the planetarium. So the audience could enjoy a little bit of that, science and astronomy, but then have an evening of the humanities as well. So it was that really cool kind of cross promotion and different audiences kind of morphing together for this one evening that was really, really fun. So I think we've really leaned into strong partnerships and stronger marketing. We have a really great marketing coordinator on staff who started a couple of years ago, who's been really honing in on figuring out who that audience is and trying to get them more engaged. It's an interesting time to be kind of someone that's trying to get both people into a space at a certain time to see a speaker, but also like, we want you to go online and watch our content too. But I think for us, it's just helping us to reach more people. It's a couple different audiences, but then there's some crossover as well. It's been really interesting.
I think probably people on this call probably got some creative inspiration from you there, because we're all have this challenge of how do you get people out, right, to come out again to in-person events. And for me, I think it's a little bit like catching up with an old friend that you haven't seen in a long time, and then you do, and you have lunch together, and you're like, why are we not doing this more? Because I had such a good time, right? But it's actually getting out of your house, getting dressed, going, putting on your nice clothes and things, making that effort, right? That seems the barrier. But I love this whole idea, and it's given me food for thought for sure about the partnership thing and bringing different audiences together, because that offers another opportunity for networking and things.
Right.
And humanities TV, it's a little bit cold outside today, and all I can think of is like, if it's going to rain soon. I know it's got to rain soon. But what a great way to spend a rainy afternoon, cuddled up on the couch with a blanket, watching humanities TV with a cup of tea.
Oh, yes, for
and
sure.
Watching all these feel-good stories about ourselves. And I say ourselves, I'm not from Missouri, but, I live here now.
You're human.
Yeah, exactly.
About human beings. Yeah.
About human beings that we share this particular time with, like that we're all on earth together at this particular time. How cool. So then how can we help? Like, for us that are on the call, like, what can we do to help? I mean, we can become members for sure. But what can we do on a personal level to help?
I think the biggest thing is engagement. We'd love you to hop on our website and join our email list so you know what's going on. You'll get notified when a new podcast or a film is up. You'll get notified when there's a new workshop on Zoom or event in your area. We have a really great kind of regular communication. We don't tend to flood people's inboxes with emails. I think typically it's once or twice a month, you'll get kind of our monthly newsletter, and then we'll also send out our community calendar mid-month. That's another asset I didn't think about, was the community calendar. So we host a calendar on our website where anybody can submit an event to have it put on that calendar. And then anybody on our website who stumbles across that calendar will find your event on there. And then we also, like I said, we'll send out an e-blast to all of our contacts, which is about 20,000 contacts throughout Missouri and some out of state as well, where we send, hey, over the next 2 weeks, here's what's happening in Missouri. Maybe there's something going on in your area. So you'll get that kind of free additional promotion of community events. So take a look at that community calendar. Our social media page is very active, so you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. That's probably the best place to get kind of more timely information. And our social media is just Missouri Humanities. It's at Mo Humanities. Join Humanities TV. I threw that link in there if you want to, curl up, with some beautiful, cool fall weather with a cup of tea or coffee and watch something. Most of the content on there is 30 minutes or less. Most of it's actually 10 minutes or less. So you could, hop on and just kind of scroll through and see what sounds interesting. All the small town showcase videos are on there. We've got the My Ozark series from Ozark Vitality. There's a great story series on there called the Lincoln School Project out of West Plains, Missouri. And just, some really great content out there. So I highly recommend checking that out. The next time you're thinking of watching something and you really don't feel like jumping from Netflix to HBO to Hulu to Stars to find something. Because I know that's what I do every Friday night. Yeah, I think, engagement's the biggest thing for us. Engagement, partnership. We just, it's hard for us to say, how can you help us? Because we want to help you guys. So,
Yeah.
That's more important to me, is how can we help you guys, and how can you engaging with us benefit you? And
Maryville is hosting one of the exhibits in April next year for the Voices and Votes.
Nice.
Traveling exhibit. Can you share a little bit about that? Do you have some information about that exhibit and some of the traveling things that you do?
Yeah, so Voices and Votes is one of our exhibits that we get through the Smithsonian. So the Smithsonian, like the Smithsonian in DC, has a program called Museums on Main Street. And it's a traveling exhibit program where basically what we've done is apply to get the Voices and Votes exhibit. We've done it with several exhibits in the past. Some of you might have been part of the Crossroads Changes in Rural America exhibit that we toured over this past year. Voices and Votes is the next one. And basically, we are given the exhibit for, usually it's about a year. So then we go to our communities and we say, hey, apply to have this exhibit in your community. And it's a fairly extensive exhibit. It's not a simple pop-up banner exhibit. It's a well-constructed, really nice exhibit with some artifacts included, with some digital content that, you have to have the right space for it and the staff support for it. But you can apply to have this in your community. You get it for, I think it's about a month usually. You also get typically a small amount of funding along with it to help support any programs you'd like to host in coordination with it. So if you have the Voices and Votes exhibit and you want to bring in somebody to do a dialogue about civics or the Constitution, you can do that. So Voices and Votes will be an exhibit that tours next year, and it's kind of leading up to the semi-quincentennial, kind of this story about civics in American life. So a lot about voting movements, about citizenship and things like that. So we're really excited to see that. We haven't seen it yet. The first community hasn't gotten it yet, but that'll be starting up pretty soon here.
Yeah. And I meant to do this before to reiterate your point, Caitlyn, about how, people think that these rural towns are all the same, but they're so unique. Every time I go to a rural town, I see, Alicia, you're shaking your head too. Like every time I go to a rural town, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is cool. Like every time. And if they were all the same, it would have got old by now. I'd be like, oh, here we go, another one, but I'm always excited because every rural town has something unique and something unique about the people that are there. So, yeah, gosh, we are very blessed that we have the roles that we do. But thank you for your time, Caitlyn. We really appreciate it. We've all learned a lot. Look forward to next month in December. Jackie will be our host for that one. And I'm excited for this one as well, because we are featuring, maybe you've heard about this, maybe you haven't. There is a student-run store in, I'm forgetting the name of the town. Why?
Plattsburgh.
Plattsburgh. There's a student-run store in Plattsburgh called Tigers on Main. And I met with those students and the instructors a couple of months ago now. And oh my goodness, it was very, very cool spending time with these students. And the resounding theme that they kept saying was how much they enjoyed being part of the community. And so, if you have a particular view about teenagers or that age group, these ones don't fit your, or they open your eyes up to how much this age group wants to be engaged and involved and to help in the towns that they live in. It's very cool. So if you are by Plattsburgh or want to plan a trip to Plattsburgh, you can go visit Tigers on Main. And there's also a very cool cafe there that is run by a chef from New York, and she moved to Plattsburgh, and the cafe is like kind of French themed, and she has all this like baked goods, and she met the local chief of police, I think it is, or the local policeman, and they're getting married. It's a Hallmark movie.
Aww.
A complete Hallmark movie. So you just have to go to Plattsburgh to just go there and hear her story. So
That's
cool.
awesome. I'll have to keep that in mind.
Yep. And I haven't tried any of the baked goods because I wasn't eating sugar when I visited. Stupid. But they look amazing. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. I really appreciate the time to toot the horn of Missouri Humanities. I am one of a staff of, I think it's 11 of us we're all equally as passionate, equally as excited to do the work that we do. It's just a wonderful team. And please, any questions, any opportunity to engage with us, please don't hesitate to reach out. So I appreciate you all having us on.
Thank you. Thank you, Caitlyn. And we'll see you next month, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.